Recording in progress.
Swanzey Zoning Board of Adjustment for April 17th, 2023 order. I will ask Beverly to call the roll.
Uchiwa,
Here.
Brian Rutgers, Bill Hipwalker,
Here.
Ann Karazinski, here. Lisa Thorne, Eric Callio, here. Wayne Licklider,
Here.
James Ward,
Here.
Edelman Curran.
All right. Seeing as we have a couple of our regular elected board members vacant tonight, I will seek Wayne Licklider for Brian Rogers, and James Ward for Lisa Thorne. Well, I need to read our agenda.
The agenda for the Swanzey Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting of April 17th, 2023 is as follows. First item will be review and approval of minutes of March 20th, 2023. Next will be a regional impact vote. Following that, public hearings. ZBA number 23-006, special exception application. Matthew and Mady Caron request a special exception pursuant to section 3AA, article B of the zoning ordinance to construct a DADU, detached accessory dwelling unit, at 75 South Road, tax map 31, lot 8-2 in the residence district. ZBA 23005 follows that, special exception application, Fieldstone Land Consultants, PLLC, on behalf of Lessers Four Season Services, requests a special exception pursuant to section 5, article B2B of the zoning ordinance for a multi-family use at tax map 73, lot 12-2 in the business district. Followed by ZBA number 23-005, special exception application, Fieldstone Consultants PLLC, on behalf of Lessers Four Season Services, requests a special exception pursuant to section 5, article B2J, for a bulk storage and distribution of materials use at tax map 73, lot 12-2 in the business district. There'll be other business, ex parte communications, and there any other business as may be required.
You have been provided minutes from our March 20th, 2023 board meeting. All of us here were present there at that meeting.
I make a motion.
Go ahead, James.
One of us will make the motion, one of us will second it,
Okay.
Okay, there we
Oh,
go.
wait, no presumption.
that we approve the minutes from March 27th.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 20th, 2023 as presented. Any question on the motion? Concerns? Hearing none? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Regional impact. Having reviewed the three cases technically behind us for us tonight, we want to have a.
I'll make a motion
Thank you, Ann.
that none of the petitions before us this morning are have a regional impact.
Second.
So moved and seconded that none of the applications on our agenda tonight rise to the level of having a regional impact. Any questions on the motion? Hearing or seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Opposed?
You opposed?
No, not. That would have been an A, but that was a little out of order. Okay, thank you. It's unanimous vote, regional impact. There is no regional impact of tonight's hearing. So we're on to public hearing. The first one, ZBA number 23-006, special exception application, Matthew and Mady Caron. Request a special exception pursuant to section 3AA, Article B of the zoning ordinance to construct a detached additional accessory dwelling unit, at 75 South Road, tax map 31, lot 8.2. Again, seated for this will be myself, Bill, and Wayne for Brian, and James for Lisa. This is a public hearing, but we'll first hear from the applicant to the sense of what they're trying to do. Come on up. Thanks, Ian. You can pull up a chair if you'd like. We have a couple up there.
Don't have to stand over.
Mady?
Maybe. So, my husband and I, there's my husband right there.
There you go.
So we are planning to build a garage attached to our house, and then a accessory dwelling unit attached to the garage. The garage will be, attached to the side of our house where the driveway is now, and it's going to be a 3-car garage. And then the dwelling unit will be behind that, in the back of our yard.
Do you have anything that shows where the well and septic are? Do we have any drawing that shows where the well and septic are?
We do not. But the well is on the property, it's not a shared well with any extent.
The well's here.
Right.
I think this is well.
Yeah, it should be on the,
Okay, it just
should
doesn't
be
show
on
it
the
very
site
well.
plan. So the well's in the back.
That is on your light. See that, and your septic system is roughly where?
In the front. Oh, yeah. In the front. Okay, so that is, this is the well right there,
Right now.
and that's the septic here. And we
Oh,
are
I see it.
working with
It is on Steve Road.
Septic Pro, yes, we are working with Steve Pro to have the septic revised and the leach field revised to account for the extra living space.
Did they say you're gonna need that?
Yes.
What size tank do you have?
What's that, Bill?
1250?
What size tank?
1250, and it's gonna be 2,000, I believe.
1,500 probably. But anyway, it's good, it's a whole new system.
Yes.
Yeah.
It will
Really?
be.
It'll be well protected.
It's a 1-bedroom, you're anticipating 1-bedroom with an office area? Good. Just curious, any reason why you didn't put this above the garage? I mean, I'm just curious, there's nothing in our ordinance that you have to put it anywhere, but I'm just curious, also, we see them go off and above the garage.
I think the 1-story level is, so they don't have to walk upstairs.
Okay.
And then, we don't want it to be tall, it would be, our house is a 1-story house, so we want it to be the same all level.
This is a public hearing, or if any members of the public would like to weigh in, let us know, just get our attention, we'll let you speak at any time.
Keith, I have a question, just for my own clarification.
Yeah.
An ADU versus a DADU, is this considered detached, or is it still part of the dwelling?
Oh, that's a good point.
Goes through the garage.
It's considered detached because it's not actually sharing a door with the house.
With the living space?
Oh, so it's detached,
Okay.
yes, okay.
Right, okay, thank you.
So you have enough parking, it appears, you have 4 cars contemplated,
Yeah.
helpful, plus the garage. Other questions of the board?
You, of course, are going to continue to live in the main property.
Yes.
Have you done any of the permitting that's required? You know, you're supposed to go through some steps and get a few things. You know, working with the septic stuff, but it hasn't been certified. It hasn't been installed yet, so it can't really be certified yet.
Right, we are working with them, and it's my understanding that he's going to have it approved by the state and all of that.
And you'll need a building permit.
And we still need the building permit, yes. We're going to be working with K&JD, and they're going to be helping us with that.
Good buildings.
Yeah.
As does Steve Pro.
Okay, that's good to know.
No questions of the board? Do we have any members of the public who have any questions here? No? Okay. Anything else you'd like to add to what we're looking to do?
No, that's pretty much it. I can get it approved.
All right. Any other questions of any deliberations here before we close the public hearing and we can talk? No? All right, we'll close the public hearing. And anyone have any comments before we get to the questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other questions or comments?
So our approval, if we approve this, is still subject to their getting the permits and everything like that. Because we're not saying, we don't have to wait for the permits, we simply approval
I think
conditions.
they're working through with Mike and Sarah here.
I expect that, I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, that's what got them here today, was working with them.
Yep.
Good side, so.
Keith, in the event this does pass through the questions, would that be, would our motion be contingent on this? I think that's what
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Or would we just assume that it could?
I don't think we need to make them contingent upon. Welcome.
Apologize for tardiness.
Good shape. Good timing. Thank you. All right. Public hearing's been closed. Anyone has any comments or questions? If not, we'll move to our checklist. Okay. Do we agree that the proposed use is similar to one or more uses already authorized in the district and is in an appropriate location for such a use? And?
Yes, we haven't heard any evidence to the contrary.
James?
Yes, I think it's exactly what the district is all about, residential.
Wayne?
I agree with Jay and Ian.
Bill?
I agree.
And I do too. Residential use in a residential area seems to make sense. So that carries. Number 2, do we agree that such approval would not reduce the value of any property within the neighborhood, within the district, nor otherwise be injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the neighborhood? Let's see, Wayne?
I would say it would not reduce the value of any property or cause any injurious, obnoxious, or anything offensive to the neighborhood based on the designs that we've seen, the way it's being constructed.
It's like a garage. Bill?
I agree with Wayne.
Ann?
I agree. The applicant has demonstrated a desire to keep the addition consistent with the rest of the property, so we appreciate that design consideration.
Jake?
Yes, the location of the detached accessory dwelling unit is not going to make an impact on the neighborhood, and will not be injurious in any way.
Good, and we have no value, we have no evidence in front of us that the value of any
Right.
property will go down, so I think they agree. Do we agree that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians? James?
I can't see how they're going to, given what we presented.
Wayne?
I agree.
Bill? I agree. Ann?
Yes.
And I concur. And then lastly, do we agree that adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation of this proposed use? Bill?
Yes, with the condition that they install a state-approved 4-bedroom septic system prior to occupancy.
Thank you. Ann?
Yes.
James?
Yes, and as long as the well is sufficient capacity to handle the condition.
I agree. I do too. Thank you, Bill, for qualifying that. That's it. We've got to the end of our questions.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Sarah made a list of suggested conditions to the approval, except that they're all covered by statute or by our ordinance, aren't they? Do you want those?
They don't have to be in there because they are covered by the ordinance, but it's helpful if they are in there because they'll be in the notice of decision, so it provides more clarity to the applicant to have it spelled out as such.
I'll make a motion that we approve with those 4 conditions, and the 5th one being the installation of a 4-bedroom septic system, even though it would be covered under the CO.
Excellent.
It's on page 2, Beverly, and page 3.
Under Department of Statute.
Yes. Oh, we haven't started with the department heads and it goes to the secretary.
And the additional septic.
And what was the last percent for?
4-bedroom septic.
Yes.
Yes. Where do we leave off? Been moved and seconded, right?
I think Ann seconded. So made the motion.
It's been moved and seconded.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the application, with the conditions that within the town's memo, as well as Bill's addition of the 4-bedroom septic system. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Good, so I am going to step down from the next 2 applications because my employer owns a budding property, so Bill's going to take over as chair. I will take a seat, become in a butter, and we'll keep things moving along.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a special exception application. Fieldstone Land Consultants, PLLC, on behalf of Lessers 4 Season Services, requests a special exception pursuant to Section 5 Article B, 2B of the zoning ordinance for a multifamily use, tax map 73, lot 12-2 in the business district. We'll seek Adam Mulhern for Keith Tebow. Public hearing is open. Sarah, have you got any staff comments?
The multifamily one?
Yes.
Property is 2.58 acres. It has frontage both on West Swanzey Road and West Street. The staff memo does not show a tax map or a tax card because this property was subdivided last summer from parcel. The tax map numbers were kind of messed up on this parcel, so they've all been fixed. So I'm not sure what it was subdivided from specifically, but a larger parcel that is all undeveloped. And then a year or so before that, it was subdivided from the farmhouse that you see to the west of the proposed development. For the multifamily use, they're asking to build 5 one-bedroom apartments that will be directly south of the proposed commercial use, separated by a pergola and a landscape display area. It will have a separate entrance off of West Street, and they intend to tie into West Swanzey Water and the municipal sewer. I've spoken with DPW about the sewer connection, and they don't see a problem with it. I don't have a will serve letter or anything for the water.
Thank you.
I think of it.
John, how we doing?
Good. John Noonan, for the record. John Noonan from Fieldstone Land Consultants, here on behalf of Lesser's Four Season Services. So Sarah went over overall. I'm going to just walk through the site plans quickly, and then I can go over the facts on the criteria for the special exception.
Is it possible, John, to rotate it somewhat so people in the public that might have interest
Try my best.
could see? We have full-size plans.
Okay. Yeah. Most people see it. Like stay out of the way, I guess, right? A bit more. So we're here tonight for 2 special exceptions, one being that it's multifamily use in the business district, the second one being for bulk storage in the business district. So as Sarah had mentioned before, there's proposed landscaping business here being separated by what's depicted here in this red section. This would be a pergola, so just basically open cover area. They would do outdoor storage for grills, patio furniture, those type of things in between there. That would separate where the residential 5 apartments are here. The overall idea is to break up the residential from the commercial, however, it's still uniform from the road. So the applicant really wants to have from Route 10 to make it look like it's a commercial business and fits in the business district. The rear facing portion will be more residential looking. The idea for splitting the driveways, so the commercial driveway servicing the business up in the front would come directly off of Route 10. That's been already permitted with the DOT, so New Hampshire DOT has approved and reviewed these plans for the use here off of this driveway. The second driveway would come off for the residential use off of West Street. This would break up and make the residential into more of the residential neighborhood. So West Street is almost all residential. Behind the rear of the lot is the zoning line between residential and the business district. So ultimately this project is a blend and helps transition between a business use and a residential use. So overall, they're going to be, these areas that are here would be paved. So paved driveway coming in off of Route 10, there'd be 14 outdoor bulk storage areas. These outdoor bulk storage areas would be used for mulch, stone, so it'd be colored stone, gravels that people would buy for landscaping around their houses, driveway upgrades, compost materials, and compost and soil. And then in the rear of the lot, there would be a 20 by 30 foot covered salt storage area, so that would be salt for sale.
John, could we focus on the multifamily?
Certainly, yeah. So to walk through the criteria for the multifamily, one of the first facts is the proposed use is similar to to one or more of the uses already authorized in the district, and it is an appropriate location for such a use. So Fieldstone, we have obtained special exceptions for multifamily development in the business district in the past, and throughout town, so you know this use has been authorized in this district. Subject site is an appropriate location for the proposed use. The surrounding uses to this property consist of a mix of residential, commercial, industrial, which is compatible with the project, as what the project is proposing. So as mentioned, it's a transition between business use and residential use. Based on these existing uses and the fact that the business district is along the corridor that it is comprised of a mix of residential, commercial, and industrial uses, we believe that the subject site is an appropriate location for the mixed-use project with multifamily housing. Second criteria being such approval would not reduce the value of property within the district, nor otherwise be injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the neighborhood. So granting this exception for mixed use with multifamily development in the business zone would not reduce property values within the district, nor will this project be injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the neighborhood. The proposed use will fit in with the surrounding mixture of uses in the district, and the New Hampshire Department of Transportation has approved the proposed curb cut for this proposal. Over the years, we have found that new development that is compatible with the surroundings will typically increase surrounding property values. Number 3, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicle or pedestrians. So granting the special exception for a mixed use with multifamily housing development in the business zone will not result in a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. This project will be designed to meet standard engineering practices as well as local and state regulations for both vehicular and pedestrian travel and safety. And as we've split the commercial business use from the residential, it provides a more safe and split use to keep the residents separate from where oncoming traffic and people coming in with trucks and trailers, so that adds to the safety between the pedestrian and vehicular traffic. This project will provide for adequate safe distance along the highway as issued by the DOT, and there will be no off-site improvements required for this project. This project will not create any nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. For a fact, adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operations of the proposed use. This proposed development will have adequate and appropriate facilities for the proper operation of the proposed use. This project will undergo a complete site plan review, which will ensure that all the details are provided to support the proposed development. This project will be serviced by municipal sewer, municipal water, or the West Swanzey Water Service, and underground utilities. So our client is in touch with the West Swanzey Water Precinct, determine flows. Certainly the residential is going to utilize it for domestic, and then they're going to look at if there's enough capacity for the commercial use and also for fire sprinkling. If there's not enough capacity, likely there'll be an underground storage tank for the fire use, and that can either be fed by backfeeding off of the municipal water or the West Swanzey water, or potentially add a well that could feed that tank, and that would feed with booster pumps to fill the sprinkler system. And the fire department's requested that there be a hydrant added off of that tank.
So there will be a tank, or
there will likely be a tank. The only thing that depends on is if the water precinct is able to say if there's enough capacity, if they can provide enough water for fire sprinkler. It's unlikely though, because
pressure or capacity or
both. So it is unlikely we're anticipating a underground storage tank, probably a 25,000 gallon underground tank for a fire cistern. And that would be turned in when we do if it moves to planning board, we would submit all those details on that tank. So we've discussed that it's likely that we would need that tank.
But there has been contact with the West Swanzey Water Company?
Yes. And as mentioned, that contact is through the applicant, not Fieldstone. So.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'd like to open up for questions.
Michael, do you have any comments on the application?
Not at this time.
Any board members have any questions of the applicant?
I know that this is most likely going to be going over in more detail at the planning board meeting. But I see there's water management areas, stormwater management areas on here. We're supposed to consider whether there's going to be any injurious nature of this property to the surrounding properties and so on. And so it seems to me that that is a question we should at least consider here. Can you just rough out what the plan is for managing the stormwater?
Yes, so we've gone through drainage and grading, and as part of the planning board proposal, we'll be submitting a stormwater management report. That'll go into details on how we're gonna handle all the stormwater on site. This site is gonna be just under the AOT permit level, so we're not gonna need an alteration of terrain permit at the DES level. However, we've designed, any of the sites that we work on, we design to alteration of terrain standards. So this is for treatment of stormwater and then also reduction of your off-flow velocity and volumes in a 2-year storm. So what we proposed was an infiltration basin, treatment swale out front, infiltration basin at the front. This is going to also pick up some water that comes off Route 10. That's a problematic issue with an existing culvert that's just south of the proposed driveway. So it's going to pick up that water also from off of Route 10. That's an issue, and bring it down, infiltrating and treating it. Very large storms would backfill. We have a culvert going across, and then there would be a rain garden in the back, and then ultimately outfalling to the wetland that is to the northwest corner of the property. So the rain garden that's out there, so they add a filter material lower, which is allows the water to go through. It treats the water that's there. So a portion of the property would drain to that area, and then we also have it connected to the front detention area as well.
And because there will be snow removal on the property, is there going to be things like, chemicals for snow treatment that are going to be pushed into these areas that are then going to drain into the wetlands and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, some portions to the west would go, and then they go through a grass treatment swale, and then ultimately to the rain gardens that provides further treatment.
Infiltrations.
Yeah, and then out front, right, correct, it would go through treatment swales and then into infiltration basins.
Okay.
Did I hear you correctly that there's currently a drainage problem that you're addressing?
There's water that tends to pool, and it comes across Route 12 with an existing culvert.
Okay.
So we're gonna pick up that water. It's very flat right there, so water doesn't really go anywhere. It comes out that culvert. So it would take that problem and alleviate it from up here, just on the south side of the proposed driveway.
And is that water ponding on the property itself?
Yes, and in the right of way, Route 10.
Okay.
Here,
All right.
I'm pretty much done.
Next question. You want to go first?
I'm okay waiting.
Okay. I see you have a dumpster on the side where the business is.
Yes.
Where will the proposed multifamily units, where will they throw their garbage, or do they walk across that?
Potential that they either handle it, so when we submit these items for planning board, we would handle that. Either they break it out and they have their own trash receptacles, or they have to take it to the transfer station themselves. This dumpster here would be for the business.
So they're not owning those, right? They're renting? Are they rentals?
These are rentals.
Yeah, okay. Rental people don't generally go to the transfer station on their own.
Right. So we could specify before it goes to planning board on if there's separation between that, or if we use it. Or
separation, we don't want the people or children perhaps that live in those buildings going over to the business side. Sorry, go ahead.
According to the question and so forth, adequate appropriate facilities is one of the requirements that we have to look at for this. And I know you've mentioned that a underground storage tank for water would be potentially necessary for this. That being said, I don't see kind of a proposed potential spot for that. Is there adequate space on the property to incorporate this in some fashion? And if so, is there kind of an idea where that would be?
Yeah, certainly. There is adequate room on the property. That has not been located on our plans, but I can go to what we have for a utility sheet. most likely it's going to be close to where our water line comes off of. So the water line will feed off of West Street. Sewer connection will also be in that area. So we'd be looking towards that end of that residential building area there to place the tank.
And that would be,
We'd be right from here. We're in this spot. So that the water line, this dash line here is where the water and sewer are connecting.
okay,
So this is the water line, the water end up coming in this end of the building from here.
sure.
So we either, if there's capacity to backfeed that tank, we come up with there, or if there's a well to the rear of the property, then we would feed a line across to do that.
Okay.
It would be closest to the building. So with the separation between these two buildings, there would be sprinkler for just the residential side. So it's gonna be situated as close to that residential portion as possible.
And you feel that, you know, even though you have a proposed stormwater management area and then sidewalk and so forth, that there would be adequate space?
Yeah, so there's that setback that's along the front there. It could fit that area right,
This-
almost
this-
right where that 30-foot marker is.
Okay.
You're talking with an underground tank, 25,000 gallon tank. It's 15 to 20 feet in diameter and about 35 feet.
Any other board members have questions?
I'm
Do you have a question?
working on it.
With respect to the multifamily area, is there gonna be a sidewalk all the way to West Street? Or is,
No, there currently is not a sidewalk
there-
connecting to West Street.
and I noticed there weren't any comments from department heads, but is there sufficient space in there for fire apparatus to get in there? Through around?
Yes, they've reviewed the plan.
If there's gonna be children living there, because we don't know who's gonna be living there, if their bus stop is out on the road and they have to walk in the road to get there, I don't know, don't know where.
There is an existing sidewalk on West Street right now.
Right, I mean between the,
You're gonna have to
between
walk
the
in the driveway.
apartments and, yeah, between the apartments and the road.
Oh, so on
There's-
site on the driveway.
Just a question about who's gonna reside there and whether, you know, that, and obviously that's a planning board type of thing, but, you know, we don't know who's gonna live there, so I'm just trying to see if there's,
In terms of danger to pedestrians, there'll be pedestrians walking down the driveway, that's what it looks like.
that's what I'm saying, is, yeah, thank you for eloquent.
It would appear.
They're all one bedroom, right?
One bedroom.
They're not gonna be families there most likely,
Well,
but there'll still be pedestrians walking down the driveway. That's the only way they'll get to West Street, if they're gonna walk.
if they're gonna walk.
Most likely they'll drive.
We can make a recommendation to the planning board that they consider that. Any other board members? Any members of the public who are here who would like to comment on the application? This is the multifamily aspect. If so, we just need to have your name for the record.
I'm Judy Welch.
Judy?
So are your apartments gonna have a foundation, what kind of foundation are they gonna have? Like, are they gonna have a cellar?
There would not be a basement at this point. It would be a slab on grade, 4-foot frost walls.
So, right where you have those houses, your apartments, when we have a lot of rain, it puddles there. Normally, it doesn't puddle there. And when it puddles there, I get water in my cellar. That tells me the water table's pretty high. And when you put more foundation, you're gonna spread the water out. I don't want it in my cellar.
If we move into the planning board stage, we would end up designing and doing test pits out in this area. As we've already kind of checked soils and across the property. The best soils were down on this end of the property. But certainly the stormwater management would handle any off-site flow off of the site for impacts from this project.
So you're saying that presently, water doesn't have anywhere to go except into the ground, and you're gonna manage the stormwater so that it would flow into the area where you're gonna.
It would slow down before it goes down and soaks into the ground
So
and be
you'd
treated.
be
for-
directing the water into a place rather than letting it just settle.
That's correct.
But you're directing it towards my house in one of those.
Between both areas, it'd be split on stormwater going to these two areas. The rainwater is ultimately going to go into the ground, but based on our stormwater report, it's unlikely that we would see any impact to offsite. You're reducing the velocity going offsite, so it's going to end up going into the ground. You're going to end up with the same amount of water in the ground before and after.
I also don't like the idea of salt being stored there. I don't have town water, I have my own well, and it's what they call a wash well. So I don't want it contaminated.
Judy, we'll address that in the next public hearing.
Okay.
When they're asking for a special exception for the bulk materials. And one of the focuses will be on the salt shed itself. We have the same concerns that you do. But for right now, we're just focused on the multifamily application that they have.
And I'm still concerned with, you know, where the water's gonna go. I mean, it doesn't happen every year, but, you know, once in a while, it's too much, you know? And it just seems,
Judy,
different.
are you the property across West Street from here? Okay.
yeah, I'll be looking at it.
Anyone else have any questions? Keith?
Keith Tebow, represent SCS Housing Inc. We own a Head Start facility across on the other corner there. I'll hold back my question about the bulk storage until we get to the next application, or, yeah, okay. But, you know, in larger sense, are you increasing or decreasing the amount of impervious surface pre and post construction? Because this is a pretty involved construction, I like it. But do you have you figured out whether or not you can have more or less impervious surface?
There'll be more impervious surface than the existing condition, as most of this area, this is all field now. And there's gonna be gravel, and then there's gonna be these darker areas. These are gonna be proposed pavement, and then the building, obviously. So the stormwater management will be based on that increased impervious area to handle that.
And it'll all
increased runoff.
paved, no gravel parking area, or?
Yep, so this area out in the back here, this is all gravel.
Yeah.
And this darker portion here is paved. So anywhere where there's parking, this is paved, and this is also paved, it's just a lighter dash.
I'm good. For now.
Thanks, Keith.
Susan Ellis?
I think the board's done a great job of asking a lot of the questions I was going to ask, but in no particular order. Your client is not here to hear this, but my grandfather and father owned this property. My father left it to our brother. When he sold it, he said he was told it was just going to be a landscaping business. And I feel like this is bait and switch, that we're now being faced with this going on that property that was farmland for years and years. I don't know of any other 5 apartment buildings in that area. The number of cars coming out of there, especially if it's at people going to work, when kids are waiting at the bus stop, that's a concern of mine, is traffic trying to get in and out of their parking. The most beautiful tree in town is sitting right on the corner of their property. I hope that doesn't have to be taken down. It's a beautiful sugar maple, and that would be heartbreaking to see that being taken down. Somebody mentioned they're all one bedrooms. I presume there won't be kids there, but is that the case, or do we also need to worry about kids playing near the street? Judy has had accidents happen at that's the worst traffic light in town, and she's had, we've had accidents where the car went right into her yard.
Twice.
And a couple times they
Well,
went
into my
right
house.
across where those apartments would be right now, that we've had vehicles in the field because they missed that light. I'm also wondering about the hours of operation, the noise of the heavy equipment that's going to be coming in and out there. It's going to upset the neighbors. And in what order are these things presumed to be constructed? What's coming in first? And where will all that equipment be in that process?
Okay, forgive me if I don't remember all the questions, so you can remind me as we go. The trees that are existing, those all remain. They're proposing a substantial planting, so conifers along the back here, along all the residential areas to just provide buffer, visual buffer there. And then trees and or just lower shrubs along the front. So since they're a landscaping company, they really want to make it look nice, and they're gonna spend quite a bit on plantings along Route 10. So currently there's no vegetation other than grass along Route 10, so there's gonna be a lot of plantings there. But certainly the existing trees that are over on this property line here would remain. As far as safety for vehicle traffic, it was split to kind of keep the residential separate from the commercial. So the commercial meets all the DOT regulations for safe site distance. This is a good location because you're able to see further. You're further away from this intersection. The residential is about 155 feet from the intersection here. That would, if you said 20 foot long, we're talking probably about five to six cars could stack in this area here before the stop sign.
And they do that now, trying to turn left onto Route 10. So
yep, so they're gonna have to,
get out.
right, we have a stop bar and a stop sign on the proposed plan for even the residential. The commercial, it's required. Also for the residential driveway, we have a stop sign and a stop bar. So they're gonna end up waiting just like any other intersection in town. So they'll be sitting in the driveway till they can make that left, and then you're gonna have that queuing of 5 cars. And once it goes before planning board, this would be something that we'd address as traffic and number of cars, staggering, how many impacts to peak traffic, whether morning, commuting hours, and that would be submitted to the planning board.
And was this his idea all along?
I can't speak to that. I'm covering that meeting. I don't know if this was always in his plan or if it's kind of adapted. In the past, it was he was looking at 3 apartments when they first submitted. However, in order to get the multifamily as a special exception, you need a minimum of 5 apartments. So he's going in at the minimum. He could do up to 30 apartments in the multifamily in the district here. So it changed from 3 to 5 to meet the minimum.
Are they going to be 2-story?
Single story.
Single story.
Barbara Driscoll, I live at 75 West Street. So even though I'm not in a butter, I sit at my picture window or in my gazebo and I look out across that field that's, like my sister said, was in our family for 100 years. And I know that's neither here nor there, but it's just gonna hurt my heart every day to see that field developed. And I don't agree with putting any exceptions for it. I like the idea of the driveway onto West Street. It started out being the business. I think it should just stay the business and not be a multifamily.
Just for clarification, a special exception in the ordinance indicates that the use is permitted. The special exception requirement is that the proposed use come in front of the zoning board first, so it's an extra layer. And then, as John mentioned, prior to the change in the ordinance, was it 21? It was either in 22, which was voted on last year. This could have been a 3-unit multifamily, could have been a single family. But with the zoning change that was voted on in March of last year, residential uses were removed from the business zone or the business district. And as John mentioned, the minimum size for a commercial residential property is 5 units. His original plan was 3, and we of course have no idea what transpired in the negotiations between the parties, but it was originally presented to the town as a 3-unit multifamily in conjunction with the commercial use.
I guess I just don't understand, in that zoning, how can you get the special exception or whatever it's called?
Well, there's 4 criteria, and you heard it with the previous applicant, that the board, or through the chair, went through the 4 items that needed to be satisfied in an affirmative way. And in that particular application, the board did agree with the detached dwelling unit that it met the requirements of a special exception. In this case, their original plan for 3 units would have required a variance, which is a much more difficult hurdle to cross, typically, not always, but typically, than a special exception. And it's important to understand that it is a permitted use, and the zoning contemplates this type of development on this type of property in the business district. It's just going through the extra review of the zoning board. And many of the questions that you have will be answered and addressed anyway at the planning board level, especially with regard to drainage. They do have to maintain the water that accumulates on site. As I've looked at that site through the years, I hope this will be an improvement, because that was always very wet at the easterly side when the water came across from the, for the easterly side of the site, the westerly side of the road. When the water came across through the culvert from the east side to the west side to McPhail's and then settled out, it was always very wet here, and they're going to have to deal with that, and not direct water in any other direction. It's got to stay on site.
I believe the regulation that the planning board will look at is that no water can go to abutting properties. No extra water can go to abutting properties. So they will have to be satisfied if that's true. That's the planning board.
Yeah, but the ducks like to swim in that water out there. They're not seen out there now. I see them fly in every morning.
And there's keepers every spring.
And there were deer at 3:30 this morning when my husband left for work. There were 2 of them out there. You know?
Yes, sir.
Russ Driscoll, I'm at 75 West Street. Russ Driscoll, 75 West Street. Is John just gonna do retail, or is he gonna leave, is he gonna put all this commercial stuff there for snow removal?
If we could hold that until the next application, because we're going to deal with the commercial use right after this. Anyone else have any questions?
I guess I didn't get an answer to, and maybe you don't know, but the hours of operation and how long heavy equipment will be making
Are you
noise.
talking about hours of operation for construction?
That, yeah, what's going to be constructed first, when the noise will be.
John, do you know what the schedule is?
I don't know a schedule. I know that by the time we go to planning board, we'd have that and we can address hours of operation. Certainly he would comply with any of the town requirements for that, for the business side. Likely he's gonna build the commercial landscaping section first and then utilizing this. That way he's not trying to occupy or fill these apartments while he's doing large construction next door. But we can certainly put those phases on the plan when we go to planning board.
Adam?
Personally, when I look at some of these questions, I look at them in an inverse way. And I'll be specific to get clear as to what I mean by that. And number 2, such approval will not reduce the value of property with the district nor otherwise be injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the neighborhood. I look at that not only as the neighborhood as it exists today, but the neighborhood that would become if this property was to be transformed into this, which it is not now. So I have not heard a lot of testimony as to what the actual apartments are going to be like. I mean, we've kind of made some inferences based on the sizing of the properties or the units themselves. Can you just run through what the proposed apartments and, you know, kind of their layouts and what we're looking at there?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Forgive me, we just have smaller plans right now. These will change slightly as it doesn't show the pergola separation on these right now, but this would be the elevation as seen from Route 10. So we're going to have single level here. These are where the residential is, and the commercial here. This is going to be where the break is for the pergola, and this is out for patio.
And these are all single-story units with?
These are all single-story units.
Storage.
One bedroom. Floor plans are here, so they're 576 square feet each apartment, 16 feet wide, 36 feet deep. The bedrooms are on the Route 10 side.
Okay.
So entrances are all, as mentioned, towards the residential side, towards the rear. The front of the building would be, the first 3 feet would be veneer stone, cap, and then metal panel siding. So if you want to take a look at these are the 4 layouts, simple one bedroom apartment.
Are you gonna have washer dryers on site, or are they gonna
Yes.
go to
Yep.
a laundromat? So each unit's gonna have its own laundry?
I believe so. They have, is this one's underneath this? They have closets next to the restrooms. I would assume that's where they would have them, and it might be optional, but that's something we could address too with the planning board if it has a washer and dryer.
Well, I'm just wondering, you know, how often people will, you know, come and go, and it wouldn't be unusual for there to be even a small family in a 1 bedroom.
These are 576 square feet, pretty small. It's a very small.
It's a studio more.
It's more of a studio.
Hey, I spent time in a 650 square foot space.
Yeah.
I, you know, mother
With
and
a
3
great-
kids in
with a
a
great
house, in an
dance.
apartment that size
Just you and the
for 4
dog.
years.
And then follow up on that question is why I related to, you know, injurious, obnoxious, or offensive. I'm just thinking about the quality of life of the people, you know, in terms of, you know, and again was referring to that as well, just being able to, you know, come back and forth through West Street. Do they have to travel by vehicle? Is there going to be a way to access where they're not walking on the actual, you know, right of way? And then just day-to-day activities. I mean, is there going to be any access on the Route 10 side? Like maybe somewhere where people can come back and forth, porch, things of that nature. Just trying to get a feel for what these apartments are going to be like.
So there's no connection between the Route 10 side and direct. Currently, we just have the sidewalk in front of the units. If it's brought up by the planning board, we could potentially bring that sidewalk down along the driveway to connect to the West Street sidewalk. With 5 apartments that are single bedroom, there's not going to be much traffic on that little shorter driveway that I don't foresee that would be any issue with someone walking down the side. But it's going to be 18 feet wide, over 22 feet wide up at the parking area. A typical parking space is 9 feet wide. A drive aisle, even on Route 10 or a town road, is 12 feet wide. So you're gonna have enough space that someone could walk alongside the edge of that driveway safely without with a single car coming in or going out. You'll ever have that many vehicles in and out of a parking
All it
spot.
takes is one pedestrian in
Adam,
one spot.
are you asking if somebody can sit outside in a lawn chair and maybe have a hibachi? I mean, if they want to, the people.
Well, I was just, my
No.
personal questions
Yeah.
are kind of the quality of the
Quality of
apartments.
life.
And because what we're talking about here is adding a multifamily unit that's going to be occupying potential Swanzey members of our community.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that these conditions don't create an obnoxious or, you know, injurious atmosphere. That's really what I'm looking at. That's my direction or how I'm kind of viewing it. I know some of these things would be covered in a planning scenario, but it's a question that we have to answer.
So there is no outdoor amenities currently at this time that's been discussed or shown on plan, so it's unlikely that there's gonna be someone out there with a hibachi and partying until 2 in the morning and creating the obnoxious to neighbors or anything like that. For their quality of life, living next to a landscape business is not overly loud. It's not like an industrial business that's manufacturing, making a lot of noise all day. I mean, between trucks and a front end loader loading vehicles, pretty minor. The people that are renting there will probably be working during the day, or you would assume. So I think their quality of life on the other side of the business would probably be closed by the time they're home from work. We could certainly bring that up at planning board if it's required to have outdoor amenities or something for the apartments. But currently there is nothing to have them outside of their apartment building. Other than if they want to use the ball field or something nearby.
Okay, well, I appreciate your answers and so forth, and I just have one last follow-up, and I'll hand the mic over, so to speak. And this is a question I'm just curious about. Was the proposed 3-bedroom situation on the same footprint as what the proposed 5-bedroom that we're seeing?
I believe this, so I don't have the layout for the 3-bedroom with me. I believe it was shorter from north to south slightly for the 3-bedroom.
So the idea of having these apartments the size they are were kind of the idea whether they were 3 or 5. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
The 3 bedrooms are the same size.
Yes.
The apartments didn't change.
The size of the apartment.
The 5-unit switch was solely so they didn't have to get a variance.
Okay. That's kind of the answer that I was expecting. So thank you.
Are any of the apartments going to be handicap accessible?
We currently don't have any of them handicap accessible, but that could be something that they could look at doing easily. They're all at grade, parking right out front, so it'd be easy to make an ADA compliant.
Other than reason to have a sidewalk to the sidewalk on West Street.
John, does the drive off of West Street extend to the commercial building? And if so, why? I'm just curious, because I don't have great shading here.
It does. So the driveway provides so there's a garage overhead door with a drive-through. So there's a door on the other side of the commercial business, so that if he had a trailer or had to unload items inside that he's selling inside of that building, he can bring them in and unload them in there. Or if he's bringing in a piece of equipment or something like that, or a piece of stone, he can bring it inside the building. So there is a connection point through the building, so they can open up a door. So that's how it's connected to the commercial building from West Street side.
So
that would be a very, very low use. I mean, that's not an everyday use.
But that driveway would be utilized by commercial vehicles as well as residential.
It could be if he was pulling something in or out of that building, he could access onto West Street or vice versa and go the other way. Yes.
I think the way you're describing that, it would be very rare.
That would be very rare, yeah.
I think it just lends more credence to the request for a sidewalk.
You could say it may be rare, but how do you know it's going to be rare?
Yeah, just knowing, your everyday traffic that comes in to utilize these parking spaces isn't going to start every day driving through the building as a loop. It's just not practical to be opening doors.
I had a situation not that long ago where, I was picking up my kid. He goes to Cutler, which is right across from where you're here. And I was coming up South Winchester Street, taking a left on the West Street, and then a right on Swanzey Street. And there's that one spot, there's no light. And there was a kid who was riding his bike, and he was right on the side of the road, and I came this close to ending his life. And, and it was just, it's a quick thing. And, he was in the street, probably not often that he's doing that, not much traffic coming through, but it can happen. I'm glad it didn't occur. So I'm cognizant of those kinds of things, and they can happen. So I would definitely suggest and recommend some level of access, because people are going to want to be able to travel back and forth here. And it could be just the once, but it's worth the I'm so glad.
Not scared.
Not as much as the child on the bike.
I rolled the window down, talking to him, it's just like, he was shaking up too, because he knew exactly how close. And I'm like, I'm not angry at you, I'm just very, adrenaline's way up here, you know? Go home right now, hug your mom.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? Any members of the public have any questions? And we'll close this public hearing with a special exception of the multifamily. Do any of the board members have any comments or questions before we get to the questions? Is the proposed use similar to one or more of the uses already authorized in the district, and is it in an appropriate location for the use? Adam?
I'll start with, it is an appropriate location for the use. I'm struggling with kind of figuring out a location that is a business and a residential use at the same time. I'm trying to think of awareness of where that is, but I think there's a couple within the area that have some apartments and so forth. But at any rate, yes, I'll say yes, there is multifamily, it's a use, it is an approved use, and it is authorized in the district, and it is an appropriate location, so yes.
One that's somewhat similar from a residence to business, not as close, but very close, is Paul Thomas's property where Ground Up was, and right adjacent to it is a single family home. And that's just, so that's the only one that comes to mind immediately.
LA Brewery has apartments above it.
Okay.
Just remind you that the public hearing is closed, although we do appreciate the comments from the sidelines. Wayne?
Yes, I agree with that.
Ann?
Yeah, I have to agree with Adam on question 1.
Jay?
I agree that that's a acceptable use for the business district. I would feel more comfortable if there weren't that connection to the building through that residential parking lot. I like the idea that the residential area is separate from the business area, but in terms of the location in the business district, this is an appropriate use.
Thank you. Would such, if we were to approve the project? Yes, I forgot. Yeah, I used to skip on those. Little reminded me many years ago. Do we agree that such approval would not reduce the value of any property within the district, nor otherwise be injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the neighborhood? And I would just remind the board what the definition of obnoxious, offensive, and injurious is that we received from the New Hampshire Municipal Association. Wayne?
I would say yes, it would not reduce the value of any property in the district based on what has been presented to us. I've heard some of the concerns of the people that live in the area with the water runoff, but I think the developer, the applicant is addressing that.
Thanks. Adam?
I would say yes for the same reasons that Wayne had brought up. And the only concerns I have in injurious or obnoxious, again, is I think what will also be covered in question 4, and I'm going to insist on this, is that we put some caveat that says if this is to be approved, that there is some way for people, pedestrians, to be able to go back and forth on that driveway area without actually physically having to walk on the actual driveway. So a sidewalk of some sort.
Jay?
I agree with Adam and Wayne. I think most of the concerns I have are going to be addressed at the planning board level. I do think that that this is not going to reduce the value of any property in the business district. The only way it would be injurious is if somehow it gets to the planning board without the planning board following the procedures they're doing. So yes, I say I'm affirmative about that. I will not reduce anything not injurious. Thank you. Sorry, I had to verbalize that.
Ann?
I'm going to say yes, and I want to speak to what Adam, I like the way he phrases his thoughts about the future, where we want to have some reflection on what's happening, not just now, but in Swanzey in 100 years, and the number of people who are working from home now, full-time, is very high, as is the people who have multiple people living in single bedroom homes. So I do think we want to address some of our concerns in 3 and 4, because the people who would be living here, we need to think about their enjoyment of that property.
Thank you. All agree? Do we agree that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians?
I think it's something that could be achieved, so I would be a yes, provided we put in a stipulation for the planning board to give some serious thought to pedestrian traffic, that there be a connection between the two businesses. I think that places a burden on the business. It's nice to have those 2 overhead doors to be able to move some equipment in and out, particularly for repairs. So we would put consideration for that, but I'll say yes.
Thank you. Wayne?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes, I think I agree with Adam, though, that there needs to be a sidewalk alternative for the apartment dwellers to get, other pedestrians who might be visiting them to move from West Street to the apartment.
I would say, I'll take it from the vehicle side perspective first. I mean, we have 2 curb cuts that are occurring. One's on Route 10, the other one on West Street. 10, you're looking at, almost strictly commercial business. I think that DOT does a pretty decent job of defining the characteristics of what those curb cuts need to look like. And I think the expectations of business operation hours and landscaping business are probably pretty predictable in terms of the flow. Late night stuff's probably very low, where accidents are more likely. And from the pedestrian side of the residential use, I have the concerns I've had, as I've already stipulated before, on access. But I don't know if this is a bigger picture discussion to have, but Route 10 is really developing quite a bit over the last couple of years. We're seeing a lot more residential homes being built and multifamily units. There's going to be an increased traffic, and it's cumulative. It's not just one property or other, but there's Karen will call exactly how many units are being built right across from the Marlows, and all the stuff that we're seeing here. So there doesn't really seem to be any pedestrian consideration on Route 10 whatsoever. And we're seeing a lot more residential and not as much business. So maybe that's a different discussion.
So I'm going to ask Sarah, once this public hearing is over, before we go to the next one, to give you the bird's eye view of what's being proposed and what's been taken up by Southwest Regional Planning and the state's 10-year plan that will address, if it's approved, will address what your concerns are.
So I appreciate that. So to not hold up anything further, I do believe that there is a way to say yes to Route 3, to the third question here. So I would say yes.
We aren't quite there yet, thank God. I'll agree. Yeah. Do we agree that adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use? I would just make a caveat that there's been mention that the head of our West Swanzey Sewer Department has indicated that a connection will occur, and that the applicant has indicated that they made communication with the West Swanzey Water Company, but regardless, they'll either have connection to that or a well or both, and maybe have a storage tank. So probably we'll have a storage tank. I think we're pretty sure about that associated with it. Just on those 2 issues. Wayne?
Yes, based on what you just said, and what was presented to us is there's exceptions being provided to make up for the water pressure. So I would say yes.
Yeah.
Well, I have concerns that would be addressed by the planning board, but I'm not seeing a waste receptacle. Parking is sufficient, but for the people who live there to get rid of their trash. I'm not seeing a way to conveniently do that, so I don't know if we maybe point that out to the planning board, but I would say yes.
I would say that based on the concerns of water, and there seems to be at least a plan in terms of the tank and so forth, and connection, sewer, again, same thing. My concerns about the walkway and so forth. I think it also would make some level of sense to at least address the fact that the residential curb cut also has a commercial potential use, which I think should be made aware of the people living in these apartments, that a truck, large and maybe obstructed views and so forth, could be traveling right through where they're going to be coming back and forth. I don't know, signage could potentially help with that in terms of on-site signage, or something that allows that to understand that there's not only just cars coming back and forth, just to alleviate accidents. So yes, if those concerns are met.
Jay?
Echo some of the things that, we're talking about adequate and appropriate facilities for the proper operation of the proposed use. Well, the proposed use is multifamily residential dwelling, so I think trash is an important facility for use. I think the water we've talked about, the sewage we talked about. I think the other thing which we mentioned was the need for hospital, for laundry facilities. Something would make living there appropriate, and I would hate to think that this was a rental apartment with so few amenities that it wasn't attractive for anyone. On the other hand, I'm not gonna be in the position of telling a developer what they're gonna provide. So I think with the exceptions that I mentioned, the trash and the potential addressing of the water facility, of the laundry facility, I say yes.
So with the laundry, I'm not sure we have the.
I know. I'm not sure we do either.
I think it's more of a market.
Yeah.
Marketplace. But the others that I picked up from you all are just the need for trash disposal on site, the sidewalk, access to West Street, the acknowledgement that we've considered that this drive off of West Street will handle commercial traffic as well, and making certain that the planning board is aware of it, and that additional signage be required to warn visitors as well as residents, and commercial, that there's residential use going on there. Do you have a sense of what we can put on as a condition as opposed to a recommendation? And do you feel comfortable communicating?
I definitely feel comfortable communicating it, and I would say,
It'll be in the minutes too.
it will be in the minutes, and the minutes are part of the planning board packets. I'm trying to think of a condition that would be inappropriate for you folks to add.
I think the laundry probably would be inappropriate to add.
Yeah, I do think the laundry would be inappropriate as a condition, but I think a sidewalk on the driveway may not be inappropriate as a condition if it's something that you feel needs to be in place for multifamily use to occur on this property. If a trash receptacle on that side of the development needs to be in place for you to consider multifamily on this property, it probably should be a condition.
Well, so I don't want to speak to that. I do believe that trash removal needs to be addressed. And the whole point of separating the businesses is if somebody takes personal family type trash, throws it in the dumpster where there's other trash that might be, I don't know, less safe. I don't know.
Different collection
Could
rates.
they use the same receptacle, to throw the garbage? I don't know. That's for the planning board, but I think that if you have a multifamily and no trash removal, it's,
That could be a recommendation for the planning board if you don't
Okay.
want it to be a condition. And as far as signage goes, I think, again, if this use is something that the board is uncomfortable with granting without signage about the types of vehicles that will be using the residential driveway, it's something that I think you should add as a condition.
Okay, so we've agreed to the 4 conditions, or I'm sorry, the 4 criteria. So we'll accept the motion with the stipulation that on-site trash be accommodated, that the sidewalk from the residential parking to West Street be created, and that sufficient signage to warn both the residential users and the commercial users that this particular driveway is accessible by both.
I will make a motion to that effect with Zach Bill's words, and make sure you write it, that I wrote those words, he didn't talk about any of that.
It's all plagiarism. Do we have a second?
No.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. So the special exception request or application for multifamily has been approved. Sarah's just going to give a synopsis of the plans for Route 10 in this stretch.
So the town submitted for the state's 10-year plan to have the section of Route 10 that goes through West Swanzey Village from the intersection of South Winchester Street up to, I'm trying to think if it doesn't go all the way up to North Winchester Street. It stops either at West Street or Forest Ave. I can't remember the details because it's been months.
It would be near Forest Ave, not West Street.
Okay, because yeah, I do believe it takes us past West LA Brewery. And so the proposal is to narrow Route 10 through that section of the village area and incorporate a multi-use path, at least on one side. I believe it's going to be multi-use path on the west side, and the existing sidewalk on the east side would be extended through that whole area, with the idea that traffic would be slowed down to 30 miles an hour just through that 1.5 mile stretch, and there would be 5 like flashing beacon crosswalks, one at each of the intersections on Route 10 there. So we're working towards making West Swanzey Village safer for pedestrians and non-motorized traffic. However, while we were nominated #1 for the Southwest region, DOT has not picked up our proposal yet. So it's still up here. But once the state approves the 10-year plan, it will open up the town for potentially more funding opportunities to accelerate the plan, because we'll have evidence that the state's in support of the change. So hopefully that will address some of the concerns with all of the new multifamilies that are going into this corridor, as well as, you know, things that currently exist there, because there is significant pedestrian activity and bicycles and, you know, a lot of residents in that area.
And given the discussion about, from the man from the state about speed limits on the other questions we're thinking for the select board, do we have any faith that people are going to slow down to 30?
Well, the road would be redesigned, you know, so narrowing the road does help reduce traffic.
You got to send a signal that 30 is the appropriate speed, what I heard from that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
A couple of written tickets.
Well,
Start putting the hammer down.
He said that people are going to go the speed they think is appropriate regardless of what the speed limit is. So that's what he told me. That's what he told us.
It's true. Okay, we'll keep the same board members. Special exception application, Fieldstone Land Use Consultants, PLLC, on behalf of Lesser's Four Seasons Services, requests a special exception pursuant to Section 5, Article B2J, for a bulk storage and distribution of materials used at tax map 73, lot 12-2 in the business district. Forgot to say thank you, Sarah. Nice presentation, impromptu. Thank you. We'll open the public hearing, same board members. Sarah, do you have any comments on the application?
The only comment that I have on the application is, well, you want me to give you the synopsis? Because if I give you comments, it might be confusing before a synopsis. I believe it's 14 bulk storage bins on the northern border, coming right off of Route 10 there. And those are going to be the landscaping materials. It's proposed to be very similar, if not identical, to the materials and service that Ground Up had been providing on Route 12, and Ground Up is now closed, so that does not exist in Swanzey anymore. And then an additional storage bin behind the facility for salt storage. And the only real staff concern with this at this point is the salt storage, while it is proposed to be covered, the plan does not indicate what impervious surface exists underneath the salt storage. This property is over the aquifer.
Michael? Jasmine, do you have any comments on the application? Okay, thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you. So as we touched on before, there's the 14 storage bins on the northern edge. So those are the outdoor materials, whether it's stone, mulch, and soils, compost. And then the covered soil or salt shed, that would be impervious surface underneath. Right now, he's talking about doing that as pavement underneath that area. And both the salt and also the outdoor storage, they're gonna pitch back and grade so that nothing migrates out, so you don't end up with, during rainstorms, either the materials washing out into the parking lot or into, out into the open. So the salt shed, especially where there's concern on that, that'll be pitched back so that anything that has tracking or anything else like that, it'll flow back and stay underneath the covering. That way it's not potential for rain to take it out and flow across the parking lot or out into the open ground.
So I want to ask a question.
Yes.
Mike, do you know the construction of the salt shed that we have in terms of the base and the sides? Is this conforming with that?
Yeah, both Sarah and I reviewed that, and actually more importantly, the best practices for salt storage. And what he's describing, you want to see on plan, conforms with best practices.
Other walls, rigid walls to hold it?
Yeah, I mean, in our case, they're a precast concrete block with a silicone or grout between them, but yeah.
And is this going to be similar, so that
It'd be similar, yes, whether it's
no filtration?
right. It would be either be concrete block that's moored together, or a concrete wall around, and that would come up, and then there would be a wood frame structure in the roof. And by the time we submit for planning board, we could have that detail on there, or on exactly how it's going to be. And then certainly, if it was part of the building permit, that's going to have to be submitted.
If you look at the interior of ours, you'll see a black membrane that was applied to the inside of our concrete as well. Again, the big things to roof, the main things to roof.
So I don't think there's many questions on the overall plan because we kind of walked through it already. So I'm going to go into the facts of finding for granting the special exception. Proposed use is similar to one or more of the uses authorized in the district and is appropriate for the location for the use. The proposed landscaping, which will occupy the site plans on selling landscaping materials to the general public. Since there is no definition of bulk storage in the regulations, staff has requested that the applicant seek a special exception for the portion of this business. The resale of materials on this site will consist of selling colored stone products of various sizes, colored mulch, sand, loam, compost, etc. This will essentially replace the former Ground Up business that operated off Route 12 in the town, also in the business district. Very similar to Maple Hill Nursery too, it also sells similar materials. This use will be compatible with the surrounded mixture of uses and will provide a much needed service to the town residents. The subject site is an appropriate location for this retail use as it's situated along the highway corridor where there are other businesses as well. Fact and support number 2.
John,
yes.
Just a question.
Yes.
One thing we didn't go over, or maybe not, but is just traffic flow on the commercial site. Could you address how consumers are going to come in and how the materials are going to be distributed and sold, and what you foresee as the flow?
Certainly. So all of the commercial traffic, whether it's customers or his trucks coming and going, they're off of the Route 12 driveway, they're gonna come in. If it's smaller, there's parking right along the building. So if you're coming in a car or a smaller truck, you're gonna park there. They can bring in with a trailer, you could stage out back, and they could load, so they use a front end loader to take out if you're buying mulch.
So just a quick question is that I know there's some question regarding pavement versus gravel. Just the way this is laid out, people coming in, consumers coming in are gonna have to go over the gravel field to park in front of the building, it appears. So why is there that stretch of asphalt along the easterly side? Because that's all gravel.
This is all gravel right here.
So right where you go back, right there, why is that? That's almost impossible to use to park.
The pavement that leads to the Route 10 side parking.
Yep, so this is all paved right here.
Yep.
Yes.
And these are paved parking spaces. This is gravel right through here.
What, right where your finger is, aren't those paved parking spaces
These
on
are
the
paved
north
parking
side?
spaces, yes.
How would you,
And these are paved parking.
and how would you get to those without going over the gravel?
You would drive over the gravel.
Drive over.
park there.
So is there a need for all of that pavement for those that are concerned about impervious surface?
So the connections from the van in front of the storage bins down to the Route 10 side parking spaces, why is that there? If it's not, why does it need to be there?
You're saying this could be gravel here?
Well, we're saying, why is it not?
Why is it not gravel?
Just to keep track, I mean, to kind of separate where traffic would go over here. So I mean, this separation is really, you'd either come in with a trailer and park in front of this here, or go to the parking spaces. It would then keep,
Oh, you're saying if you wanted to pick up something here,
You need to have it be on pavement, but you'd be going down here.
you'd have to drive over there.
you would just drive over the
So
gravel.
why do you have to drive this way?
Yeah, I don't,
Why wouldn't that be gravel too?
I think you do less gravel.
Mike?
The question I got for you, John, I haven't had a chance to propose the gravel versus asphalt, as long as we're here. So when you guys develop your stormwater management plan, is it gonna be done in such a way that can handle when that, if and when, that all becomes pavement?
Correct. So, as I mentioned before, we design based on the alteration of terrain standards. Alteration of terrain, so the state at their level, gravel is not any different than pavement. I know a lot of us see it as, we have gravel driveways at our home and anything else. Water absolutely soaks into gravel driveways. However, when you talk on a state level, it gets compacted, they don't see any difference on it. So when we design it, this gravel area gets designed into our stormwater management system as the same as asphalt. So if it was paved, it's not gonna change anything on the runoff calculations or anything in stormwater. So anytime we have something for a gravel driveway, we don't usually model it as gravel, just because someone could pave it in the future, and also the state doesn't break a difference out between gravel and paved surface.
Okay.
And you said that the area under the salt bin is gonna be paved surface of some sort, but also under the pre-sold material job surplus area too, is that gonna be paved as well? I mean, you said there was gonna be more pavement back there than under the salt bin.
Under the salt bin, yes, would be pavement, unless he chooses to do concrete, but as of right now, he said he wanted to do pavement underneath that building.
But I heard you say that there are other places back there that would also be paved. Didn't you say that earlier?
Nope, so currently this is all gravel.
That's why I thought you said it first, and then when we were talking about the salt bin, you said that also under the outdoor storage area, there'd be pavement as well.
Oh, I meant also,
Oh,
this would be
okay.
paved, and in front of
Okay.
these storage,
Okay.
outdoor storage bins, the bulk storage that's to the north, yes. So it's paved underneath these bulk storage, and then also underneath the covered salt shed is paved.
Thank you.
And so what would the consumer flow be? Where would consumers go?
So probably the majority of traffic is gonna be to these 9 parking spaces or these 5 parking spaces. Regular pickup truck and pedestrian.
Is there any reason to go out back for the typical consumer?
Yeah, probably because most of them can't turn a trailer around. There's a lot of space to turn a trailer or just loop through the rear here. So if they're loaded with materials to do a trailer from any of that bulk storage, they can bring their truck and trailer and do a loop and turn around to head back out. They don't have to try to back the trailer around the parked cars.
Are they self-loading or are they being loaded by?
They would be loaded by an employee of the landscape business. They're not self-loading materials from bulk storage.
Thank you. Number 2.
Such approval would not reduce the value of any property within the district, nor otherwise be injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the neighborhood, because granting this special exception for bulk storage on the subject property will not reduce property values within the district, nor will this project be injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the neighborhood. The proposed use has been situated and laid out to provide separation and buffering to surrounding residential uses and to focus on commercial use towards the highway. The storage of materials on site for resale will consist of natural materials, which will not create any environmental issues. Best management practices will be followed on site as it relates to the storage of these materials and the business operations on site. This project will be compatible with the surrounding mixture of uses in the district, and the New Hampshire Department of Transportation has approved the proposed curb cut for this use and proposal. Over the years, we've found that new development that is compatible with surroundings will typically result in a positive impact to surrounding property values. Fact in support, number 3, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicle or pedestrians because granting this special exception for a mixed-use, multifamily, and landscaping business in the business zone will not result in a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. This project will be designed to meet standard engineering practices as well as local and state regulations for both vehicular and pedestrian travel and safety. On top of the DOT has already reviewed and approved the proposed curb cut of the proposal. This project will provide for adequate safe site distance along the highway for the entrance, and there will be no off-site improvements required for this project. The project will not create any nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Also, there's not going to be any outdoor and bulk storage of fertilizers or hazardous waste, so there will be no hazardous waste or fertilizers or those types of items stored on site.
They're willing to accept that as a condition, or it's going to be stated?
Right, so potentially, I mean, they could have small bags of fertilizer interior of the building that they sell, but they're not going to do a bulk storage outside or anything like that. They told us that. That's not.
Adam?
Will there be any delivery services directly to consumer, or is this all, or intended delivery services, meaning is there going to be a employee of this business that's going to be taking and filling trailers and then driving off to residential neighborhoods and dumping, or is this going to be all self-serve, or do you know?
I do not know. I would assume that they're going to end up having a service where they could sell and deliver, but I don't know if they have that option. I would have to check with the applicant to verify that they would want to do that or not.
And the rationale I asked the question is just, again, you know, when you have increased traffic, I mean, I don't know, it's not a massive difference between somebody coming in with a trailer and a truck and filling up and going versus having someone who's employed doing the same. But I was just curious as to the flow of traffic going back and forth related to that question. So that's the spirit of why I'm asking that.
Yeah, so I don't know if they would have it, but I would assume they would. They're going to have their business very similar to Ground Up. They've generally mentioned that they're expecting us to replace where Ground Up had that business in town, which did also people bringing their personal vehicles and trailers to be filled up, and they also delivered. So it's most likely they're going to go that avenue, that they would have a service to deliver bulk materials such as mulch, spray, and gravel for driveways. Okay. Number 4, adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operations of the proposed use. This proposed development will have adequate and appropriate facilities for the proper operation of the proposed use. This project will undergo a complete site plan review, which will ensure that all details are provided to support the proposed development. This project will be serviced by municipal water, sewer, and underground utilities.
Thank you, John. Any board members have any questions, Ann?
Will there be, so that the main entrance to the landscaping building is in the front or
in the front? So he really wants to have the business facing Route 10. Yeah, so the majority of the vehicles are expected coming here, that's the main entrance there. There's a display area at the end of the parking lot. So that's just a grass area, and they would have, you know, Adirondack chairs or any patio type furniture, grills, in addition to
So
the
that's an
covered
empty,
display area.
so and I know, oh, that's display, and then the covered display area that's between the building and.
Would
the
be similar, and
residence?
probably set up as patio furniture, set
So
up
that-
as.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, all right, I thought, so the building isn't connected to the residential part, or is that, is there a roof there? I guess.
So he's saying right now he would like to do a pergola type roof, so it would be open slat type roof.
Okay.
So it's impervious and that rainwater would go right through it.
Okay,
But it is connected between the two of them.
Yeah.
There'd be a concrete pad
okay.
and that pergola type roof.
And there's no wall here, or there's a wall here?
There's no wall on
Yeah.
either side.
Okay. So one could walk from the residential area over, go inside.
They could, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly.
Well, I was thinking about that when Adam was asking questions, that if these apartments are single family, get some employees that live there, and they can walk to work, not have to
Certainly.
worry about traffic.
And they can hang out in the display area.
And they can hang out on the Adirondack.
Test out the grills and the patio furniture, yeah.
Hibachi.
This question, I think, is more for just, how we approach this. There's, seems to be concerns about the types of materials that are gonna be stored on site. As a board, what is appropriate? Maybe, Sarah, you could give us some insight. What would be an appropriate conditional response that we would have for the types of materials? I know the applicant has suggested, things like mulch and rock and so forth.
The conditions could limit the materials stored to the limits that have been shared, to the materials that were shared in the application.
And is there anything that states that the applicant couldn't potentially store something else in the future without coming back to either us or?
You could make that as a condition.
We've also noted on the site plan, so now you have the notes on the site plan, so when it gets to planning board to it, it approves the site plan and any notes that are included on that site plan portion.
So
So that could always be referenced that, you list out these materials on your approved site plan. If they went to something else, they would have to come back to the planning board.
So if there is an aquifer underneath that? There is. So, I know the materials are all natural, and I don't buy mulch because I'm cheap, but if mulch is infected with something, like a bug. Mulch bug, could that, or any other material, if it's got something on it, that could leach right down into the aquifer. So some concern would be.
Which is why they're proposing that it would be all impervious underneath, so it'd be a paved surface underneath, and then pitching back, so it keeps everything contained in those bays, so.
Right, unless we get a flood or something, but, okay.
So one of the concerns that I expressed to the ownership, because we talk to these people a lot when they come in, was they had rack storage inside the structure. I was concerned about fertilizer storage and other chemical storage was my big thing. And the mulch and things, certainly there could be a mulch bug or dyes or things, but I was really worried about fertilizers because he uses those to make bombs, and all that stuff. He's neither certified or licensed or has any desire to have those. That does not mean that couldn't be a condition of approval by you or planning. If I'm not mistaken, Sarah would be better for that.
John, with regard to the leaching concern, could you speak to how it might compare with a septic system on a leach field, which most of those properties all have?
Yeah, so.
Or many of them anyway.
Yeah, so a leach field system is taking, waste from a home into a tank, separates the solids, and then you have the liquid go out to your leach field. That then soaks into the ground. The idea is that it treats the water as it goes from the bottom of the bed through the natural soil, and then the water is clean. The state has set up that it only requires really 6 inches of clean soil below your septic system to treat that water. With septic systems, you end up with a lot of times, pharmaceuticals that people use, and they found that it actually treats that out as well. So you do end up with, even a residential septic system, you end up with some chemicals leaching out and going out to your leach field that go into the ground. And it's treated by that bed that's below the piping that goes out to the field, your leach field.
Is there a correlation of that to Ann's question?
So very similar, if there was a chemical or something got into some of this, it'd be very similar in that we got to the soil, so this is paved underneath, so technically the water's not gonna go through it.
Right.
It could be treated by the soils underneath, similar to a leach field.
Any other board members?
Just general concern when you have a property like this and you have bulk storage and people are taking things out of the bulk storage and putting them in trucks or trailers or whatever, there's gonna be some spillage. That spillage is out on the pavement. Rain comes, water comes, that spillage is washed off into the gravel and it has to percolate down, and hopefully that will protect the aquifer from any of the materials there. But to think of it as pristine is foolish. It's gonna leak in some ways. Just it's not going to be going directly into the water system. It's going to be going through soil eventually.
It'll be going through soil eventually, yes.
Yes. And the only place bulk storage is going to be is out here, because we're considering bulk storage. That's what this special exception is all about.
Correct.
So this is the only place that we're going to see bulk storage on the site, with the addition of salt bin back.
Yeah, so the salt shed is still bulk storage,
Right.
so we have that one out back, but the majority of the bulk storage is out in the front here.
Anyone else? Yeah.
One little question, small question. With respect to what Sarah was talking about earlier, where the state is considering narrowing Route 10, do we have any idea, are they gonna use eminent domain in some instances?
When you
Or-
make the road narrower, you don't need more land,
Okay,
you need less.
I just, for planning purposes, might the sidewalk, which side of the road do we think it's gonna be on? The Cutler side?
Any sidewalk placement would be in the state's right of way, and no development is allowed within the right of way. So for instance, if the sidewalk on Route 10 comes to fruition and it's going to go in front of the landscaping business, it would be outside of the parcel that is outlined.
Okay,
for
so they
development.
can't even put plants or trees or whatever in the right of way?
No,
So,
yeah.
okay, I'm just trying to, for planning purposes, it would be a shame to put something up and then have to take it down.
Yeah, on Route 10, the setback was just revised to 30 feet
Okay.
from the right of way.
Yep.
For Route 10 and Route 12, and so that's why Route 10 looks very wide on the plan that's presented, because it's showing the whole right of way area.
Okay. All right.
Anyone else? Any members of the public have any questions or comments? You could rotate it a little bit.
I get Russ Driscoll, 75 West Street. I think my big concern with the bulk storage is the salt. And Ground Up didn't sell salt. And I'm not sure that Lester's Four Season is gonna sell salt to the public. I mean, he's also in the commercial parking lot plow business. Is he gonna take salt from there middle of the night and do his parking lots?
I would say that it'd be likely that he would also use that for his business as well, so, yes.
But, so, in a snowstorm, he'd be filling up trucks and for his own plowing stuff, right, and salt, and I know he's in the commercial business.
Yep.
So there'd be,
Yeah,
so any hours of the day that we could have trucks coming in and out of there. It's not like a retail place that's open 7 to 5 or something like that.
Correct. The retail portion of this would have hours. If he's utilizing this for snow plowing, yes, he could access anything.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm concerned with the salt being on top of the aquifer. I mean, you say, it's pavement and cement blocks and whatever, but
Correct.
It's, yeah. It works till it doesn't, and then it hurts your aquifer. It just seems risky to me.
Mike, can you speak to that?
I mean, all we can do is best management practices is what's called out. I mean, that's what we can require, we will. I'm not here to make anybody's case for them or against them. But I gotta tell you, modern society expects clean roads within hours after snow. And they've been getting it, and they've been getting it with salt. Towns never use salt. We always use sand forever. And then they want them cleaner faster. Now we go out on just salt runs, straight salt runs, because that's what people expect. And the amount of salt that's dumped on Route 10 and West Street already, I don't know how much it is compared to what they're gonna store, but it's already there.
I hear what you're saying. So it's already washing into the.
We don't, you know, we don't really think about it when we're going on our nice new clean road, but that's how it got so clean. And that's why it's all that white residue. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying it is.
So with that in mind, and I know the town operates a salt shed, but is it actually salt, or do they add something to it to keep it from?
No, that's salt.
It's just regular salt?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so is there, I mean, is that something we should consider? We can't put a burden on them that the town doesn't have, but if they change to a different type of salt that has some additive that, I mean, is there any concern there, or are we just expectations they're gonna maintain this salt shed? And would it be periodically inspected to make sure it's okay, or it hasn't degraded to the point where it's gonna bother the aquifer, or?
We'd have to have either the authority and or the measuring equipment and or, I mean, it would be, all you can do is, like I said, in these situations, we're stuck with best practices, and best practices are what they are at that moment in time.
Okay.
Mike?
Question for Mike, was that salt shed building you were talking about, wasn't that the town building you were talking about with the membrane?
Yeah.
And how it was constructed?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted,
I mean, water's, you know, water made the Grand Canyon, you know, it's pretty powerful. Medium, given enough time. We've got 3 sheds that I know, 2 sheds, we've got that one, and there's the other large salt shed over at, that I know of, well, the state garage, but then at the Erosia, Riverhill.
In Marlboro, big one.
Yeah, I mean, in comments ourselves.
Yes.
Like I said, it's just trying to meet people's expectations today is a bit different than it once was.
How about the aesthetics of you talked about the block wall or cement block, can you request it be something more attractive, like the, I don't know what it's called, architectural brown blocks that might look nicer than cement blocks with mortar? Or could it be brick?
No.
Yeah, it wouldn't be visible from the public way, and there's also, we're proposing
Will it be visible from the neighbors?
plantings all along the backside here.
Yeah, but how long is it gonna take before those get tall enough to block?
In Swanzey, they like to grow quick. They grow real fast. Well, you should.
It's
You have 2 houses, 3 houses to the left of that, and then
Right.
this is a view.
Yep, and these are all plantings here. This side, we've called out a stockade fence as well as plantings.
Yeah, with the salt building.
If they're successful with this application, that will be reviewed by the planning board. Within the 4 questions that we have, it's very difficult to bring that in, unless someone were to make the argument that it would have an impact on property values.
I think that, I understand where Mike's coming from, but if you come in and buy a house at the Pine Street, you know there's a salt shed there, you already know that going in. We don't have a salt shed on West Street. And I think the problem that's gonna arise out of this, running the commercial plowing business, is at night loading trucks and backup alarms going off. You know, we don't have bulk storage there now. So we're not used to it, like the state shed. If you live next to the state shed, you hear it all the time. You realize they're out plowing. But I think here in a quiet residential area, that's probably gonna be one of the concerns, is all hours of the night, that they're gonna be maintaining their parking lots. Because it snows sometimes at night.
Snows often at night.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to ask, John, the proposal is for bulk storage for the landscaping business, not bulk storage for a plowing business.
Correct. I would anticipate that they would do plowing as well, though.
But that's not what they're asking for right now, and so that's a little bit disingenuous if the plowing is going to happen using that shed, and trucks are going to be coming and going out of this area. Nothing about the trucks, it's just the bulk storage question before us is presented as bulk storage for a ground-up like business. And that's what we're hearing from you, and that's what we're asking.
It doesn't operate at night. I think I hear what you're saying.
So it could have restricted hours on when they access the bulk storage, the same as retail.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure whether we have the ability to do that or not. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, but there's no definition of the bulk storage. I don't know that you could say that it's restricted to a time or a use.
Yeah, I'm not sure we could.
Right,
but in this particular case, the whole presentation has been for a landscaping business. And landscaping doesn't translate to snow removal or snow treatment, to me, at least. So I'm not sure whether we could say that the bulk storage is only to be used for the landscaping business, because that's what this proposal is all about. Or we could say that there's a condition that they only be used during retail hours. But I would imagine that would be a handicap for a good landscaper too, because they might want to, after retail hours, be able to get materials to work on their.
It could be 2 or 3 in the morning and they need more salt, and they can't sit there and not go get salt.
Right.
So the question is how, is that something that's going to present an issue in the neighborhood if they're doing it? You know, it's going to happen in the winter, we know that.
Right. So, I mean,
maybe at night, maybe not.
One of the things I'm wondering about is whether we could say you can't have salt on this property. Just wondering.
I just would remind the board that the property is in a business zone.
Right.
And some of the houses are in a business zone. And when people came to the board for a special exception for residential use, we always reminded them that they're in a business zone and subject to the operations of a business. And in this case, I've already said it, it's in a business zone. And I live across from a factory. I can't determine whether they run 1 shift, 2 shifts, or 3. And I've lived there when they've had 3 shifts. And it was business on that side of the road, rural ag where I was, now it's residential, but I lived with it. And I appreciate the comments very much, but it is in a business zone. And I think we have to give credence to that. To my knowledge, we don't have anything in the ordinance to address issues where zones meet up. In this case, we have a business zone meeting up to a residential zone, but we don't seem to address that.
We don't have that in the regulations.
Not that I'm aware of.
And that's been.
The only thing that we have that addresses that is the 50 feet between a residential structure and a commercial structure. So it's not really addressing zones per se, but you know, so it would be potentially a further setback than would normally be required if, for instance, the residential abutter was built right on the property line. The commercial could not build right at the 20-foot setback. It would have to be 50 feet away from the residential structure.
And that's what you see right here, so that's good.
What if the salt shed was up near Route 10 instead of around that, near the houses?
Well, think it's a waiver of the wetland for a reason.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility of that, John? I don't think it's gonna impact the beeping so much, but it might it might reduce glare.
Typically, the planning board doesn't want to see dumpsters and you know, a salt shed or that type of thing on the frontage side. They want it hidden behind the building, which is why it was located behind the building, you know, where the dumpster pad is and out in the back. There is gonna be, you know, we proposed a landscape berm, so the berm is a soil that's built up to be higher, so that'll help mask it, and then on top, there's plantings on that berm to further mask it. I mean, the building itself has walls in the back, as we talked about, be concrete, either block or then a structure above it to cover it. I think it's in a good location because it's not open to the Route 10 side and out in the open. It's kind of tucked away and it's well screened. If the planning board deemed it appropriate, I'd say we could put more screening around it, or as was mentioned, if it had to be a different type of block to make it look nicer, they could do that. I think location-wise, though, it's better suited behind the building. I think the planning board tends to, when we locate things like that, to want them hidden from the public way. So as located, it's not visible from either public way, the town or the DOT's public way.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just got one observation to share, maybe can help us kind of move forward here. Would it be required for the applicant to have stated any of their proposed bulk needs prior to applying for this? Meaning, do they have to specify what they're going to be actually storing on property prior to getting this application approved?
Staff requested that everything that they would be bulk storage, all of the bulk storage be indicated on the plan so that the ZBA would know what was being approved, specifically what materials were being approved.
So materials included?
Yes, and that's noted on that, the site plan sheet.
So was the site plan sheet more specific than that? I can't read that. Wait till you get to be my age, you'll understand.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's under that note.
So all 12 are listed?
I believe so. I mean, this is one of these that the Conservation Commission asked for, was what was being stored here.
Number 15 reads, materials to be stored on site will include colored stone, various sizes, colored mulch, sawdust, sand, gravel, loam, compost, and salt. And then below is the no bulk storage of fertilizers or hazardous materials to be stored on site.
I believe they also added, because we talked about this a lot, that a lot of that was going to be also pre-sold. So I asked, you know, are you going to have large pallets of stone? Yeah, but only what's been pre-sold, so it's not actually stock. The answer to that question was no, it's not. It will only be pre-sold. We're waiting to either install them or waiting for the rest of it to come in or whatever, but it's not going to be like just massive amounts of stone just waiting for someone to come buy it someday, was how it was presented.
Right, so that area was added as a pre-sold area. That's nice. Yeah, so that's in the rear too. Okay. So it would be, that way it's not pallets and everything sitting out by the road and visible to everyone.
So the perspective I have from this, Adam, is this, is people will complain about properties on Route 10, and often quite rightfully so. So my first thing is I go to the file and I go, okay, well, what was approved? And I look to see if there were conditions and what was approved, because I can't come down on somebody if A, it was approved, or B, it wasn't necessarily excluded, exceptions obviously. But we're trying to make it a little bit finer so that when I'm sent out to do something, that we can say, no, this was the deal, this is what you said, you're not doing it, knock it off. That's the goal.
That makes sense.
Is the applicant open to including the membrane that Mike spoke of on the interior of the salt shed?
I think if that's a best management practice that the town uses, I would think they'd likely agree to. I think the best practice for salt management, and certainly if the town's adopted that, I'm sure they'd be open to it.
Okay, and I'm assuming that there would be a shelf life to that material. And whatever that shelf life is, would they coordinate with Mike to have it replaced on schedule? Would that be part of best management?
We do our level best on that, too.
What's that?
So we do our level best on that, sure.
Okay. You won't be here then.
Yeah, well, that's what I was talking about, is how do we plan properly for the future?
Well, we document it.
That's good.
And that's the dilemma that I have with a lot of these properties, quite frankly, is the documentation is very weak. Which makes my job harder, and whoever comes after me, much, much harder, because they don't have institutional knowledge theoretically.
You're doing a good job, Ken. Those files are getting better and better. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Board members? Mike?
Once you guys get through the questions, if a motion to approve is granted, we should consider one of the conditions being that the bulk storage be limited to exactly what is on the plat, exactly what is in the application. And that will help cover the town moving forward to ensure that maybe lesser sells to somebody else in future, and a future owner does not abuse the bulk storage use if it is approved.
Before we close the public hearing, the other aspect of the request has to do with distribution of material. Is everyone satisfied with the comments and questions that have been asked with regard to distribution? Okay. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Close the public hearing. Anybody have any questions or comments before we get to the 4 criteria? Hearing none, do we agree that the proposed use is similar to one or more of the uses already authorized in the district? And is it in an appropriate location for such use? Jay?
Yes, I do. Bulk storage is a special exception use, and this is for use appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Wayne?
Yes, I agree with Jay.
Adam?
Yes, for the same reason as both gentlemen before, and landscaping business is one that's common to residential neighborhoods and commercial properties, so it fits in the character of the community at large. So from that perspective, yes.
Ann?
Yes.
I'll agree. Do we agree that such approval would not reduce the value of any property within the district nor otherwise be injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the neighborhood? Adam?
I would say that there's been no testimony that states the contrary, that the value of the properties would be reduced by the operation of a landscaping business with bulk storage. But I think there is concern about the long-term effects of a salt storage on the premises, so that maintaining or any of the materials that are listed here, like fertilizers or hazardous materials and so forth. So I would agree with Sarah's
just to clarify, the fertilizers and the hazardous materials they're stipulating will not be
if we are
stored outdoors in bulk. Assuming we take Sarah's guidance.
Under Sarah's guidance, I think, having that as a caveat to a potential, positive or affirmative for the special exception, I think that would be something that would be necessary to go hand in glove with. So yes, if we are to use that language in addition to.
Okay, thank you. Wayne?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Yes, so the approval will not reduce the value of the property, and it will not be injurious, obnoxious, or offensive as long as we pass on our concerns about stormwater management and salt storage to the planning board and follow Sarah's stipulation.
Thank you. Ann?
Yes, I'll agree with that.
I agree. Do we agree that there'll be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians? Ann?
I haven't seen any evidence that would be an issue. It's on a state highway. The curb cuts are approved. I don't think we're going to see a lot of pedestrian traffic into the business, so I don't have a concern there.
Just a quick question. Will they be bringing the entire to the planning board for site plan review, or will they be doing two separate?
It will be one
It'll be
application.
one, so that our comments with regard to the signage on the West Street side will be a
It will
part
all
of
be
it.
in that.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
I agree with Ann that this is likely to be no nuisance or hazard for everything we've seen. The only thing I can see is that, you know, people will have to drive carefully as they maneuver around the parking lot to where I'm going. It's the interior of the property.
Thank you. Wayne?
Yes, based on what was presented to us.
Adam?
I would say yes, and I'd just add that, you know, as you stated, Bill, before, this isn't a business district. There's expectations of business operations during business hours, you know, regardless of what this particular use were. So from that point of view, the considerations have been taken in terms of curb cut, you know, and turnaround and so on and so forth, where vehicle hazards have been minimized. And as Ann stated, pedestrian traffic is probably pretty minimal on a business like this. I don't know how many people are going to be humping back, mulch on their backs to their homes.
We're coming to Wheeling sightseeing.
Yes,
Bring the wheel.
so I think from that perspective, I think these concerns have been addressed, so yes.
Excuse me, I'll agree. Do we agree that adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use? Ann?
Yes, I think especially if we add those stipulations that Sarah had recommended, we have the ability for the planning board to address the concerns that we've had during our meeting, yes.
Thank you. Adam?
I would feel comfortable to say yes, as long as we, again, caveat, like Ann said, with Sarah's language as it pertains to what types of materials can be stored on site. This isn't a blank slate, bulk, anything. You know, this is specific to the property and the use of this property, which is a landscaping business. And the types of materials that are being used are those common to be seen within that type of business. So yes, from that perspective.
Jay?
The facilities are appropriate for the uses delineated in the application. I'd like to make sure that the salt bin is constructed in the way that the town constructs our salt bin.
From
With a membrane,
from a foundation.
for a foundation, and with a membrane on the interior to provide additional sealing.
Okay, but not you're not talking about the bubble over ours, because they indicated
No,
what structure.
I'm sorry, I want to include the membrane as the extra layer on the inside of the shape.
And it is covered, it will have a roof.
It will have a roof.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't have to look just like that.
Doesn't have to be a
Got it.
Quonset.
Okay, all right. Wayne?
Yeah, I agree with Jay's point wholeheartedly that it should have the membrane, the concrete, and a roof over it. That's the primary concern. So, yes.
Agreed. So we've, we've agreed on the 4 criteria. What language would we like to add as condition? We want to have language that ties it directly to the plan itself with regard to the specific items that will be stored. We want to make sure that the foundation for the salt shed, which we're most particularly concerned about, is constructed appropriately with the membrane that was mentioned, and that it's maintained and replaced as needed.
Yes, that's good addition.
I'd add one more thing, Bill, just that the conditions are also tied to the use of this particular business. Whereas I think the application states kind of broadly bulk storage. So we're talking about bulk storage as it relates to a landscaping business,
right,
not some other type of use where that could be hazardous. So.
Well, and so on the sheet here, where it has the notes and it says no bulk storage of fertilizers or hazardous materials will be stored on site. That's bulk. And I mean, I wouldn't want to say that it could never store anything else there, but it can't be hazardous material and it can't be fertilizer. So like if they had a different type of crushed stone, as long as the stone is, like if it were artificial and was hazardous, they can't store it. Do you see what I mean? Right there.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, wood chips, I suppose, is not listed. It could have, but it's.
Sawdust is listed.
Sawdust is listed.
So,
So wood chips would not be permitted.
Exactly.
and I wouldn't want to put that restriction, is what I'm saying.
That's what we're doing, though.
Well,
We are putting that restriction on. The entire discussion focused on the list of items that they have.
well, I thought that it was limiting hazardous materials.
No, it was limiting it to the list of items that they provided.
And also recognizing the fact that they're stating that no hazardous materials, so they're tied to what they list on the application.
That's key to me. I mean, that's the idea that we would not allow any hazardous waste storage there, ever.
They're not saying waste so much as hazardous materials. And fertilizers that would not be stored in bulk. Now, in terms of packaged fertilizer,
yeah,
most facilities have those
inside.
Well, outside for display, but the majority of what they have is inside. If you go to Ham Shaw's or any of the others.
And that's fine.
Okay.
So just to clarify, my potential recommendation to this is that it is specific to the use that has been applied for, which is a landscaping business, and then furthermore, the materials specifically to what are listed on the plan, narrowing it to those and those only. That's what we had
And excluding
discussed.
the ones that are excluded on the plan too.
Correct.
I think Sarah's language was that it be tied to their actual proposal. In all respects.
And would the applicant, upon hearing that, if the applicant knew they wanted to store something else, would they have 30 days to come back?
They would have to ask for.
They'd have to ask for something else, okay. So that's, I want to keep that in mind.
Anyone else have any comments? You got all that, Beverly?
I do.
Anyone care to make that motion? Okay. Anyone care to make the motion?
I make the motion, but I don't know exactly.
Beverly's got it.
Beverly's got it. I'll make the motion.
We have a second? Adam seconds.
I'll second
Any
the
further
motion.
discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. And for those of you in the public who had concerns about the project, you too there's a 30-day opportunity to request a rehearing. That would mean tomorrow is day one, so anytime in that next 30 days, if you felt that we've made a mistake, we didn't consider something, you're welcome to speak with Sarah, and she'll give you the guidance that she can in a general sense to allow you to make a formal request for a rehearing. Okay?
That will be April 27th, next Thursday at 6 o'clock.
Keith, are you ready to come back?
You just finished that.
What's that?
You just finished that.
Oh, no. I've had too many of these ex parte communication discussions.
You're gonna be part of that.
Bathroom break?
I would move that we push the ex parte off, since the reason for having it was for the new person who hasn't been to any meetings. So I would move that we move that until we have a full staff.
The motion to continue the discussion of ex parte communications to a future date. Do we have a second? Your turn, Mr. Chairman. It's all in your hands now.
All those in favor?
Any question?
Well, to Ann's point, I think that was the purpose, because we did discuss this at a meeting 2 months ago about the concerns of ex parte communications amongst those that are present. And I think the new board member
Has not been here.
would benefit from that discussion.
Right.
Who made the second to the motion? Was that you, Adam?
I seconded it,
You
yes.
did? Okay, thank you.
I'd make the motion that we close our meeting since Perry agreed to start.
Can I have a comment to the ex parte?
Sure.
It's actually 2 comments. One, the new member was actually here for your discussion on ex parte. She was not a member yet, but she was here for the whole conversation. The other thing is, the only reason it's still on the agenda is because that night you guys said you wanted it to be on the agenda every month. If you would like me to remove it from the agenda moving forward, I can, but it wasn't, it's not there because of the new member. It's there so that you guys are constantly thinking about it.
We should constantly think about it.
I thought it would be useful for us to have at least once a year a discussion with all of us rehashing the whole thing. It's my proposal that we have a yearly discussion.
It's
So
an
we
excellent idea.
So I think it might be worth it for us to have a 10-minute, 15-minute talk about what's available, what's acceptable, what's not. I'd feel a lot better if we ran through a couple scenarios and find out what's appropriate. I think, you know, we run into each other at the grocery store. There are two of us. It's not three. So
I know I'm not chair,
like
but
that.
just time out. You
So,
got a motion
I don't
on
wanna
the
do this.
table?
We have a motion on the table,
I don't wanna do
yes.
this. So let's talk about the motion, but that's the background of what I have. Right, so, responding to Sarah's comment.
So is the motion, just so we all know, we're pushing it off till May?
A future date.
Yes.
Because
A future date.
Jason had a great point, yeah, okay.
She said a future date. She didn't indicate a specific date, or did you?
No,
A future date.
Have it on.
Oh, that's how, that means Sarah's got to put it on the agenda every month.
well, that's
We're
fine,
practicing, it's easy.
because I'm gonna be at a Red Sox game at our next meeting.
Oh, so we know it's not going to be in May.
Well, just in the seconding of the motion, why I seconded it, because I do think it's important that all members who are members of the board elected have this discussion together.
Yes.
If anyone has any discussions or questions as to what they should or should not do, more than happy to ask. But as it relates to the motion that was made to kick this, I thought it was important, that's why I seconded it.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please do so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Kick it down the road. I agree having everybody here at the same time. Really good. Especially with a new member, but still. All right. Anything else to come before the board? Hearing none. Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Recording stopped.